After 2 consecutive healthy scratches, we finally get to hear from Shane Wright himself.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say? Happy Friday, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're bringing you your favorite team every single day. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken. I'm also a contributor to CBS Sports as a writer on the editorial side and as an analyst for CBS Sports HQ. And excited as always to talk some Seattle Kraken hockey. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by Game Time. Now you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKED on NHL for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game time. But it's also time to talk to you again about Shane Wright. If you missed yesterday's episode with Zane Begg from Davy Jones Locker Room, I highly recommend that you take a listen to that after this episode, which of course is your first listen of the day. But Zane brought up a hypothetical regarding Shane Wright that I thought made a lot of sense. And it's maybe as much as Shane Wright needs to focus on some things to improve his game as it is an opportunity to give Ben Myers a little bit of play if and when, aka when, the Seattle Kraken have to make some roster moves when Vince Dunn returns. Speaking of Vince Dunn, before we get to Shane Wright, speaking of Vince Dunn, he will be with the team on the road trip. However, Dan Bylsma, head coach of the Seattle Kraken, said that's more so that Vince Dunn can continue his rehab and get some practice time on the ice. We're also expecting, per Dan Bylsma, to get an update on Jordan Eberle today. Now, what that update is, I don't know. And is it going to be that the captain also goes on LTIR? We'll find out. The Seattle Kraken are going to play 3 Pacific Division rivals in the next handful of games, so not extensive travel, but definitely some games that the Seattle Kraken want to be able to secure. And we'll hear from Dan Bylsma about the homestand and how to kind of anchor things. But as promised, I want to get back to Shane Wright. We've been talking about Shane Wright because, again, he's been a healthy scratch, wanting to figure out what's going on with him. Nobody asked about Shane Wright after the last game, the win against the Nashville Predators, but Shane was at the podium at practice today. So let's hear from the source directly from Shane Wright. This is what he had to say regarding where he is in the process. And we'll also hear a little bit later on the episode from Dan Bylsma.
I think there's obviously, a lot of things I can be better at and, a lot of ways I can improve, but I think just, it's about learning every day, just keep growing, just learn what it's like to play in this league and, how to be a consistent player in this league and just keep working on my game, keep getting better, and just, enjoy the whole, situation, the whole process here, really just kind of soak it in, really just, enjoy every second of it. Just overall, for me personally, just need to be a lot better, with the puck and take care of it. And, kind of reflect on my game and how I felt it's gone so far. And, maybe just kind of get a little bit of a mental reset here and, kind of get back to the way I know I can play and, try to be, the player I know I can be and really try to have, a good impact on the game. Yeah.
I want to pause there just for a minute because Shane Wright is talking about, that he has some things that he wants to work on so that, the situation doesn't happen again, that being that he is a healthy scratch. And we're going to hear from Shane Wright regarding also what he feels the team can do and how he thinks the team can learn from the homestand. But I also want you to hear what Dan Bylsma was asked, or what he said when he was asked about what the process or process. I love how Canadians say process. He was asked what the process is in when you have someone like Shane Wright who is watching from sky level, so to speak. What is the process in real time to give that player an opportunity to learn a little bit about what's going on? And I thought his answer was really interesting. So here's Dan Bylsma talking today after practice about Shane Wright and how the team was able to kind of work alongside Shane Wright to just see some things from, as I said on the other episode a few days ago, a fishbowl perspective, the outside looking in.
Yeah, and we, actually did it in game with Shane for the second and third period. Just sometimes looking from 200 feet, game can look a little slower from up there, and you can see the actual spacing, you can see the actual timing of the game, and talking through it in reference to your own game can be a positive thing.
And so that's what Dan Bylsma had to say about the Seattle Kraken, presumably in that last game against Nashville. They allowed Shane Wright to observe on his own, it sounds like, in the first period. And then in the second and third period, which, again, if you listen to my conversation with Zame, that's when things really picked up. Well, quite literally, they picked up because the Kraken, who were the only team not scored in that game, 3-0 win, they didn't score until the second frame. So breaking things down when there was a little bit more action. I think all of this points to what I have been saying on the podcast, that this is an opportunity for Shane Wright to really learn in real time, to get him more acclimated and comfortable to the NHL game. And I liked what Zame added to the conversation, because in addition to perhaps this being at least as much or if not equally about Ben Meyers, at least in part about Ben Meyers, this is about Shane Wright's development. And I have another clip that I'm going to play from Dan Bylsma, because he addresses how he feels Ben Meyers has been playing. But overall, this is really the Seattle Kraken trying to settle Shane in. And something that Zame and I talked about on Thursday's episode, yesterday's episode, is that they're going to need Shane Wright at some point in time. He is not going to be the player that is going to be moved when Vince Dunn returns. Now, if Eberle also goes on to LTIR, then that need to get under the salary cap and make a roster move, it kind of gets extended. What that is going to look like, we don't know. I hope that's not the case, but Eberle's updates have been slow to come, and I don't know, my gut is telling me that we're going to get an announcement that he's out for an extended period of time, but who knows? At the time of this recording, they could be announcing that. I will keep my eyes on my email and social media in case that happens, but let's hear again from Dan Bylsma talking a little bit about Ben Meyers.
I think he's done well in each of the games in different ways. And the first game was he was called on a little bit more defensively and defensive situation, and it's something he has worked on beginning of the year in CV and did a good job of in that game. And last game, I think he had two in particular momentum shifts that got the game back in our favor. The one shift before the goal was Ben and Tovey and Borky, and it was their offensive zone shift that led to the change and then led to Chandler's line getting out there and getting that goal. And they did that one other time in the second period with their offensive zone shift. So I think he's been doing just what's expected of him.
So that was Dan Bylsma saying that Ben Myers has been doing just what is expected of him. Coming up on today's episode, I'm going to tell you what's expected of this Seattle Kraken team after going 5 of 6 on the homestand. We're going to hear once again from Dan Bylsma, and then we'll close out the show talking a little bit about why, although the LA Kings might not be playing their most inspired version of hockey right now, they're go-to form of playing hockey might be the Achilles heel for this Seattle Kraken team. All that coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken, as I mentioned at the top of the show, brought to you by our friends at Game Time. I love being able to go to a new city and find some of the hottest tickets, all because I have the Game Time app downloaded on my mobile device. I've been able to see while traveling and impromptu some of my favorite bands, some great concerts, and of course, some Mariners games while traveling to Seattle specifically. And what I love about the Game Time app is that I can check out right in the app the view from my seat. Now, when I go to concerts, I definitely prefer general admission concerts just because you get the vibes. But when I go to baseball games, I'm all about checking out the view from my seats. And I can do that right in the app on Game Time before making a purchase. Game Time also has so many cool ways to curate special deals that will make it easier to find the best price on great seats, including an all-in pricing. Now, this is something that you can toggle in the app on your account, and this feature will show you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. So if you want to ball on a budget, definitely toggle all-in pricing. And of course, there's the low price guarantee. Guaranteed, Game Time will guarantee that you get the best price for your special event, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here. And a reminder, if you haven't listened to our Thursday episode, go take a listen. And if you miss anything on Locked On, you can actually find our entire playlist on the King 5 website. And so definitely go check that out. They are our partners at Tegna, and we love that they are promoting not just our show, but also the Locked On NHL show. So you won't have to miss anything, whether it's Locked On Kraken or King 5, the Tegna family has you covered, bringing you your favorite team every single day. Now, it's not quite game time yet. The Seattle Kraken will take on the LA Kings on Saturday, tomorrow. But I do want to talk about, since it's not game time, we don't have to preview a game for tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the homestand. Zame and I talked about the homestand. We gave you our analysis from the homestand, taking 5 out of 6, critical for the Seattle Kraken. That being said, there's still a lot that this team needs to do. Dan Bylsma, when asked about that 20-game benchmark, we're at that. Our next game will be game number 21. I don't want to say that he was dissatisfied or discontent, but he definitely knows that there is more to work up toward. The homestand, a good indication, as you will hear from Dan Bylsma shortly, a good indication that this team has what it takes, but there's still a little bit of work that needs to be done. Let's hear what Dan Bylsma had to say after practice today. Also, or at practice today. I don't know if it was before or after practice. I'm kind of thinking before. I'm not in Seattle this time, but because of his sweater game, sweater weather. It is sweater weather for sure. Here's Dan Bylsma.
I think we're a group, trying to meet different challenges and trying to react in the right way. That's in game and that's game to game. And I think the homestand shows a lot of signs of growth in both from game to game and to in game, of how we played and how we reacted in those circumstances. And it's set us up for a chance to have the same type of reaction on a road games, and some divisional opponents, and starts with LA, but Anaheim and San Jose. It's, we don't know how each one of them is going to go, but we got to be ready to react in game, and we also have to be ready to react game to game, whether it's you're on the road and it's the next game on the road, or if we look towards the weekend, it's back-to-back games with San Jose and coming back here to play the second one. So there's some challenges ahead for us. Ones I think we put ourselves in a good spot to meet.
Challenges ahead, but we've put ourselves in a good spot to meet those. And the first challenge, again, is the LA Kings. Coming up on the next segment of Locked on Kraken, we're going to talk a little bit more about this this LA team. But speaking of Anaheim and San Jose, if we look at the Pacific Division, here's what we have coming up. Now, the Seattle Kraken right now are in the 6th spot in the Pacific Division with 21 points. That being said, and this is actually something that Eddie Garcia from Locked on Kings, LA Kings, talked about. When you look at the separation, it's a pretty tight toggle in the middle. So the LA Kings have 23 points on the season and are in 3rd place. Vegas is at the top of the table, followed by Calgary. But we're taking on the Kings. They are 10-7-3 through 20 games. We are 10-9-1 through 20 games. Again, the Kings have 23 points. We have 21 points. But we're also taking on an Anaheim Ducks team that's 8-8-2 with 18 points. So just 3 points behind us right now, and 4 points behind us, 1 point behind the Anaheim Ducks, the San Jose Sharks at 6-11-5. And so the Seattle Kraken are one of 3 teams in the Pacific Division with a positive goal differential. Vegas has a +13. The Kings have a +5. We have a +3. The Calgary Flames are actually even Steven. And if you look at the winning streaks, the longest winning streaks right now in the Pacific Division belong to Calgary on a 3-game winning streak, and the Anaheim Ducks actually on a 3-game winning streak. Of course, we just had a 4-game win streak of our own, won our last 5 of our last 6. So these are important games for the Seattle Kraken to create some separation. And so the mentality is something that is going to have to be sharp for the Seattle Kraken. And I think that's another reason, going back to the first segment, where you have a little bit of time baked in. It was definitely uncomfortable, maybe a little bit confusing, but I do get the sense that the Seattle Kraken under Dan Bylsma, they have a bigger picture in mind. And it's all about the give and take. What is the team willing to sacrifice in the here and now, so that in the intermediate and the long term, that they are better for it and not worse for the wear? Some of that physically you can't always anticipate. I got a hunch that some of what Dan Bylsma was saying regarding preparedness for his team going into the home and home series, we'll have a home and home against Anaheim, a home and home against San Jose. When I say home and home, I mean we'll play 1 game on the road, and then they will come to Climate Pledge Arena for 1 game. So it's kind of a little bit of a mini series with both of these teams, and it's a one and done. We're on the road playing LA. But again, these are Pacific Division rivals, and an opportunity for the Seattle Kraken to right the ship and establish themselves in the Pacific Division. But it's not going to be easy. Again, that physicality piece, we have, really gotten rocked quite honestly, when playing Pacific Division opponents in the past. Can we step up to the plate, so to speak? That's a baseball reference, but can we stay steady on the line? Can we stay steady on our feet? And Dan Bylsma alludes to some of that against LA because their game is a stingy game, especially in the neutral zone. We've been talking about it for years on Locked On Kraken. I personally love it as someone who loves defense. I wish the Seattle Kraken would adopt some of what LA does, just some of it. But even though Dan Bylsma in his remarks earlier today said that perhaps some of how LA has played in the last handful of years has evolved in very specific areas, they still are going to play the LA Kings, that is, in a way where it's going to cause problems for a team like the Seattle Kraken who want to play in transition. That's what Zame and I were talking about yesterday. He was using a basketball analogy, which is my bread and butter. The transition game is how you play fast. You don't want to play in, again, to use the basketball analogy, the half-court sets. That's really difficult to get your speed up. And it's the same in hockey. You want to play that 200-foot game for sure. And the Seattle Kraken are in for a little bit of a challenge. And some of, again, what the Kings are able to do when they are their most successful is going to present problems for the Seattle Kraken, because if we continue to do things inconsistently, 50-50 puck battles, board battles, making sure on the defensive end that we are shifting down and replacing our defensemen when they go out to block the puck or, play the puck or things of that nature. Those are habits that the Seattle Kraken, they let fall by the wayside. And you can't do that against a Kings team. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends over at Fanduel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The Fanduel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. We made it. It's a Friday. And next week, for those of us in the States, is a little bit abbreviated because of a holiday. So I hope that you go into the weekend, that you get to watch the Kraken game. I've been listening to the radio broadcasts with Al and Everett and really been enjoying it. So, however you're watching, maybe some of you are going to go check out the game on the road at the arena formerly known as Staples Center. But either way, and I'll say this at the end also, have a good time. I hope you enjoy the weekend. Hope it's nice and relaxing. As far as the Kraken, we can't really afford to relax. This is going to be an LA team that, again, the way they play, it just inevitably is going to make things difficult for a team that likes to get up in transition. Zame and I talked about that a lot yesterday. A few other things that it's worth knowing and noting. Neither team particularly good on the power play. I think the Kings were 0 for 5 in their last game. The Seattle Kraken power play is at a 14.3% clip right now. That's 29th out of 32 teams. Or excuse me, that's the LA Kings. We're 23rd, so I wasn't far off. So 16.4% for Seattle, a 14.3% clip for the LA Kings. The penalty kill, pretty close. We're actually 14th, the Seattle Kraken, and the Kings are 15th, so middle of the pack. 80% for the Seattle Kraken, 80% on the nose, 79.7%. So if you round up, it's 80% for the LA Kings. Face-off percentage advantage goes to LA, 51.6% on the season, 48.1% for the Seattle Kraken. Goals for, we are averaging 2.85 goals per game. The Kings are averaging 3.05 goals per game. And we both are averaging 2.75 goals against. So tied for 10th overall in the league. The LA Kings are coming off of a tough loss against the Buffalo Sabres. Again, Eddie Garcia didn't necessarily feel like the Kings played altogether poorly, gave a lot of credit to the Sabres, but definitely talked about some players that just aren't quite activated to the level that the Kings would like. We certainly know about that. The Seattle Kraken do. In their last 10, the Kings are 5-4-1 with wins over Vegas, Nashville, Minnesota, Columbus, and Detroit. They're coming off a loss, though, again, as I mentioned, to Buffalo. We're 5-5 in our last 10 with wins over Nashville, the Islanders, Chicago, Columbus, and the Vegas Golden Knights. So some overlap there. Usually, if teams are visiting the Kraken, they're visiting the West Coast. So that's a little bit there. Some players to keep an eye on. We've got, Kopitar for the Kings is leading right now in assists with 6. Adrian Kempe leading with 4 goals. Kempe also leads the team with 6 points. Jared McCann has 6 points and 2 goals, leading the Kraken. Chandler Stevenson 4 assists, and that's across the last 5 games. Those are your leaders across the last 5 games. So Darcy Kemper, a 9.03 save percentage, is 4-2-3 for the Kings. Wonder if we'll see Kemper. As far as the Kraken, we've talked about this. It's Joey Decord with a 9.23 save percentage, 9-3-1 on the season, 2.31 goals against average, 1-6-0 for Philip Grubauer, 311 goals against average, 8.81 save percentage. I do think we're going to see Joey Decord, but we will see Philip Grubauer with the home and home series, probably especially against San Jose, since that series is a back-to-back. So why am I a little concerned, or do I think this is a good test for the Seattle Kraken? That's because the Kings like to clog the middle, and they're going to make it difficult for the Seattle Kraken to get in transition. And so what is Dan Bylsma going to do about it? Here's what he had to say earlier today.
But just watching their last few games, it still has a propensity to force the opposition into playing slow. And that's something we're going to have to resist the urge to play slow against the way they're playing and play fast. And, their D have changed a little bit with Clark and don't want to mispronounce names, but they're a little bit more agile, a little bit more mobile. D back there, they're not a bunch of heavy guys and make it harder on the net, but they play a man-on-man in zone, and you gotta be ready to beat your man. You gotta be ready to hold on to the puck. You gotta be ready to go one-on-one, and not one-on-one dangle, but one-on-one confrontational wise to have some success.
What I hear Dan Bylsma saying is that his Kraken team's got to get ready to get tough. You got to muck it up. You got to be gritty. And this is something that I think going into the Rangers game, the Kraken were starting to feel a better vibe. They went up against the Rangers on Sunday, and that's a solid team. If you make mistakes, they're going to clean them up. and they're really good at also erasing any mishandling of the puck Keandre Miller had a just a great defensive play, a la Brandon Montour from the Nashville game. So this is a Kings team that's going to make things difficult. I don't think offensively, again, just listening to Locked On Kings, I don't think that they're feeling their groove completely. Again, it's been a little bit of an up and down in their last 10 games, but you get some home cooking. You're going up against a Pacific Division rival. The perfect time for the Kings to get things humming again. But that's the same for the Kraken. I like that Dan Bylsma in that clip sounded like he was challenging his team to really step up. As he used the term confrontational, I would say step up the sandpaper, the moxie, really get after this game. It's going to be tight. This team wants to play in the body. That's one way you slow a fast team down. They also are going to hunker down in the neutral zone. That's been the MO for the Kings since the Kraken joined the division. So it's got to be crisp passing, making the right pass, not the flashy pass. I want to see the shot, the shot production up. So that's something that we've been talking about in the last few episodes regarding Daniel Sprong. Daniel Sprong is the kind of player I think you want to see really step up in a game against the Kings. I think Oliver Bjorkstrand is another player I want to see step up. Chandler Stevenson, it was really interesting to hear Zame talk about that. Again, I've been I've been listening to the games on the radio for the last handful of games, partially because I was on the road, and then I just kind of really liked it. Anyway, I digress. Why am I saying that? Because some of the things that I like to do when I'm watching a game on television is watch the setup, the hockey pass, right? Or the pass before the hockey pass. I don't get that when I'm listening on the radio. And Zame picked up some really interesting, perhaps lackadaisical habits when it comes to Chandler Stevenson that I haven't picked up in the last handful of games. When I see the highlights and watch the goals for and against, I see a player that can help us in tight spaces. So I hope we get Chandler Stevenson from the second and third period against Nashville and not Chandler Stevenson, according to Zame, in the first period. That being said, the Seattle Kraken didn't really do much in the first period against the Nashville Predators. So we just want to see the Kraken from periods 2 and 3. If the news about Eberle isn't great, I wonder what that means maybe a little bit more in the intermediate, especially for these road games and these Pacific Division games. Will we see a world in which we get Ben and Shane Wright? I mean, again, Eberle's been out of the lineup already, but, is there a way to shake things up, get Shane a little bit more time, or has Ben really earned his ice time? Well, I guess we'll just have to tune in tomorrow to find out. So that's going to conclude our show. A reminder to be kind to yourself, be kind to one another. I hope those of you who have been displaced by the severe weather in Seattle, I hope you are safe, warm, dry, and that you get back to your homes soon enough. But until the next episode, and until tomorrow night, a reminder to hold fast, stay true, and loud and proud we say always, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.